Welcome back to the card pool. It is part 3 for Champions of Kamigawa, meaning the money this time.
Indeed, and I'm your host, Kyle.
And I'm Stu, and we are going to be going through this step by step, and hopefully we'll not be disagreeing as much this time, but who knows? It's anyone's guess.
We'll see.
But we'll start off with the number 1 tippy top, richest card of the mall in the land of here, and
I don't know where you were going with that.
I gotta go to school in English class. All right, number 1 is a card called Asusa Lost But Seeking. It is like around $32 for the OG. It has been reprinted again, but from this set, it's around that much. It's a human legendary creature on a 1/2 body that has the simple effect of you can now go ahead and put 2 additional lands into play each turn. So this is super duper strong for being able to get a huge ramp in. It's green at its core. This is the green poster pinup girl from this set.
Well, yeah, and obviously pretty much the best ramp commander there is if you're into big green. I mean, even Omnath doesn't come close to the efficiency here.
It's arguable to see which is for what. This one lays the track where Omnath is the train that rides it. So I don't know. You kind of say which one's more important.
Well, there are so many great cards in Magic, like Exploration, for 1 mana enchantment, playing an additional land every turn. That's crazy enough, but having a card that lets you play 2 additional lands every turn...
Super strong.
Well, and where this becomes really good, because obviously you can't always rely on having a lot of lands in your hand. If you play Crucible of Worlds or the Excavator from Amonkhet... So you can play lands from your graveyard, especially things like Terramorphic Expanse, where you just play it 3 different times and tutor 3 different lands. It's crazy. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a great commander.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah, you really don't think it's that much, but it's a staple for landfall decks or anything else like that that really cares about land count or just uses interactions with lands, like a Titania commander, for example, or something like that. And the more specialty lands, the better this gets. So, yeah, not much more to really say about it. It's a commander or
everybody
it's a part of the 99. But moving on to number 2, Kyle, make it rain.
Yeah, speaking of cards everybody knows, number 2 on this list is for $31, Sensei's Divining Top.
Beautiful
Because it
card.
had to be. It's a 1-mana artifact that you can pay 1 at any time to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order, or you can tap it to draw a card and then put the top on top of your deck. So I will never forget opening this card in like one of my first packs of Kamigawa and thinking, well, this is garbage.
Yeah.
And how wrong was I?
Everyone was wrong about this. They were throwing these cards out. Like, you went to drafts and people like sometimes leave the cards that are like junk behind and like, yeah, if you want them, take them. These were cards that were thrown out, or you find people finding them in their box of collections and be like, oh, here's another $30. I didn't know I existed. Like,
yeah, I couldn't believe I still had one after all these years. But yeah, I mean, obviously, for those of you who know Magic at all in any way, this is ridiculous.
And so this is the card we mentioned a lot in the show. So it's a 1-drop artifact for 1. It pretty much filters whatever your draw is going to be if you have a floating mana. And if you really need it for that time being, you can go ahead and tap it and swap this card out for that. This has combos to make it so you can draw out your entire deck with a card like a Helm of Awakening.
Yeah, Elsha of the Infinite. Yeah, so
it works out really well.
Yeah, and the best part about this is with the ability to remove itself from the field at any time, it's basically unkillable.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like that Lego piece. It's just always in your shoe. You can't kick. Not Lego piece. Pebble that can't escape your shoe or something like that.
Well, Lego pieces.
I'm hurting today.
I've had that happen before. It's not fun. Yeah. But yeah, this card is nuts, and it goes into any deck, and it probably should. So
this was an uncommon. It later got reprinted in one of the Master sets as a rare, which it should have been.
Easily should have been.
I mean, honestly, you could even argue the caveat of it being mythic, but to each their own for that.
Yeah, this is just one of those staples like Soul Ring. You need to have it. And not everyone's gonna have it in every deck. I know I can't afford that, but it should be. It should be.
The big argument for this one is, do you run this or Scroll Rack? But we won't talk about that.
Yeah, that's a whole other argument.
But moving on to number 3. We're going to be looking at a creature here called Marrow Gnar. Gnar. It costs around $24. It is another legendary creature. This one's a rat. It's around, it's 5 mana, 3 generic, and double black for a 2/3 body. And it makes it so that all rats have fear. In addition, you can go ahead and sack a rat and put X 1/1 rat tokens into play, where X is that creature, where X is the number of rats you control. So this is kind of like, if you've seen Krenko Mob Boss, this is the black variant for it.
Yeah.
This is more in rats as opposed to goblins. It's super strong. The one thing that black really doesn't have is a way to double tokens, which we see in green and we see in white now. So this is something that kind of puts it a little bit behind that curve, but this is still a powerful commander nonetheless.
I find it really interesting why this is so high up on a list of money cards. It might just be because it hasn't been reprinted, I guess.
I think that's part of it.
I mean, otherwise, Rat Tribal just really isn't that strong of a tribe. However,
there's a lot of Rat Tribals that are going to gun you down.
The only thing that makes it good is the fact that you can run a Relentless Rats deck, and that's a whole
That's another thing as well.
But even then, I wouldn't run this as the commander because they're just better mono black commanders. So I don't know, and you don't really need it. So I don't know. I don't get this one being on the money cards, but he's a fine card, I suppose.
Well, I think this is more or less the Rat commander, and that's probably why. Like, and if you want to run a Relentless Rats deck, like, you can do that with any commander, but it's just so much better with this. And like, honestly, beyond the commander, you can make a pretty good budget build with this.
You could, but and also giving all rats fear, which is basically like blanket evasion in most cases, is pretty good.
But also,
you could argue that
there's some really good, just like low 1-drop rats that this Wizards has made over the years, where it's like, all right, 1/1 Death Touch. Like, it might not be the scariest thing on the board, but it makes it annoying to get around.
Yeah, and then there's like pack rats and rat colonies and relentless rats that are like the scourge of the casual play group. So,
I thought you meant outside of Magic. Like, yeah, there are relentless rats out there. They're in the streets everywhere.
They're relentless.
But moving on to number 4, Kyle, this one is yours.
All right, well, number 4 starts our kick of legendary lands here. This one for $21 is Manamo's School at Water's Edge. And this one is a blue legendary land that taps for 1 blue, just normally doesn't come into play tapped or any of that. Or it can tap 1 blue and tap itself to untap target legendary permanent. Now, this is pretty good because untapping anything legendary, including other lands, obviously pretty strong.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of great commanders and other legendary creatures that this card works amazingly with.
Yeah, best thing to note is permanent. Usually, you think for just commander, it works really well with the commander. And you're not wrong in that case, but people usually forget for the other thing of being legendary permanents. It is relevant sometimes. It can save you. I've actually done that to the point, like, all right, I'll just go ahead and untap this. And the player's like, all right, how are you doing that? Well, with this land, yeah, that's not a creature. I'm like, you are right, but that does not mean I can't do this. And then like they have to read it and like, oh, I never realized it, because you never see it outside of that scenario.
It's better than an island. I mean, it comes into play.
Passes the vanilla test. This would 100% be a mythic land today. There's so much power in this set, and it's pretty wild for honestly seeing people say this was a horrible set.
A lot of the great cards in Magic came out of this set, and then they're like everybody knows them. Everybody knows them, and then if you ask where they came from, it's like, I don't know.
Something with there's rats and snakes and such. And, but this is also a very cool political play card as well, because you can go ahead and untap other people's commanders or permanents for that matter. All that just for on a land, pretty nice.
Definitely.
But moving on to another legendary land, if you don't mind me going.
Go ahead.
This one is called Beseju, who shelters all. So legendary land, like we said, it costs around $20, and it comes into play tapped, which isn't as nice, but you can go ahead and tap this, pay 2 life, and you get 1 generic mana. Well, what does that earn you? Well, if you use this mana on an instant or sorcery, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities, which is pretty nice. Being able to get an unmolested spell off the play is really good for the fact of like, hey, I need to blow up the board, and I can't let this get countered. Or I need to go for a lethal swing, and this is my anthem to do it. This can't be countered. It makes it so you can go ahead and get that little bit of oomph that all control players groan about.
Yeah, it's not quite Cavern of Souls good, because it only makes colorless, and you have to pay life to do it. But otherwise,
and it's tapped.
Yeah, but otherwise it's pretty comparable. And if you're running a deck that runs a large amount of instants and sorceries, you absolutely should be playing this if possible.
I run a deck that uses Approach of the Second Sun, and being able to make sure I can get that cast off for the second time is really nice by having this out onto the field. So it is fun for that amount. It is a heavily life-costed card, especially if you play this out early in the game and you need to get your mana cap out there. It just kind of stings paying 2 life for no reason at all. But if you go ahead and you make this produce any other color, like with Chromatic Lantern or an Urborg, you can get around it, for example. So there are ways that make it so it's a little less heavy. And this is still at this cost after it's been reprinted in one of the Vault sets.
Yeah.
So this is just give you an idea of the power level on this thing.
Definitely. Well, speaking of more legendary lands, I think we're just going to keep going down the list.
Yeah, we're not separating these out for a specific reason. That each one of these has a particular play, and they're not all just uniform.
Definitely. This one's very different. For example, our number 6 on this list, coming in at $17, is Shizo, Death's Storehouse.
Bless you.
Which is, thank you, the black legendary land. Yeah, once again, better than the average swamp, taps for black mana, and then also it can tap for 1 black and itself to give target legendary creature fear until the end of the turn. Now, fear, again, like we talked about.
I'm so glad you said thank you.
Even doing?
Since Shizo, I said bless you.
I know.
Yeah. You didn't so smooth, I think you got it.
But like we went over with Maronar, fear is almost like unblockable a lot of the time. So I get why this one is very high on the list. This enables a lot of different Voltron strategies that have access to black. If your commander is something you like to get in for damage reliably, this makes it happen. This passes the vanilla test easily, and it's almost like a less mana Rogue's Passage, again, which is a land I consider in almost every single deck. So this one is no different.
Yeah, I agree. Another political card play, like we said before. This is also good for if anything matters for targeting. Mono black from this set, Hirobi, Death's Whales, an awesome commander. I have one, I love the deck. So for being able to just flat out pay 1 black, target their commander, and it dies. Very powerful. And also being able to give something fear that doesn't have fear in its colors, so like green having fear or white having fear, it makes it so much harder to deal with. And that is awesome. Or actually, can you imagine having an Eldrazi?
Yeah, with fear. I mean, I feel like they should anyway, but still.
Yeah, well, who's not being terrified of Ulamog coming down at you? So, yeah, that poor soccer tribe elder right there. But either way, we digress, but there's not much more to say about it beyond that level. But moving on to number 7, I'm going for these complex legendary lands. This one is called Hall of the Bandit Lord. It costs around $16 for another legendary land that comes into play tapped. Why, you may ask? Well, if you want to go ahead and pay 3 life this time, if 2 wasn't enough for you, it adds 1 mana to your pool, and if it was spent for a creature, this creature will have haste.
Now this is pretty good. I mean, Boseiju itself is a good card. I wouldn't play it in every deck, but it's a good card. This I would consider playing in every deck. This is really good.
It depends what you're doing. A Storm deck would like the counter free stuff. If you're using creature heavy, you would probably use this one. Most of the commander is creature heavy since you have a creature commander, so or could be planeswalker, sure, we'll add that caveat. But yeah, being able to get haste is really nice.
Yeah, for no reason at all other than tapping for mana.
I would not say this land passes the vanilla test.
No, it comes into play tapped. It happens.
Like, honestly, if you're in red has haste galore, so it might not be the best for an example, but there is the red land that cares if you have an elemental in your hand.
Right.
It can come into play untapped, and for 1 red, you can make it so any creature can go ahead and come into play and have haste, or any creature can have haste, I'm sorry. So it's not conditional to the turn it comes into play, because you can't just flat out make it so the creature has haste. It has to be when you cast it, it has haste. So it's a little bit of a timey scenario right there, but again, it is legendary, which is tutorable for like a Captain Sisay or like a Thalia's Lancers, which we have said time before. But again, something to take note of. It is useful and hasn't been reprinted.
Yeah, and again, I'm surprised I don't see this as often as I feel like it should be popping up, because
Flamekin Village, that was the name of it.
Yeah, that's the name of the other one. But this one, I would definitely consider playing this a lot more than I currently would.
Would you use it over a Hand War battlements?
Well, that all depends on whether or not you have the other half of the card that melds with it.
I disagree completely
I would,
with
otherwise,
that.
if you don't, I would play this hands down.
But the big thing also to note about this can give haste in colors that doesn't have haste. Blue doesn't have haste.
Exactly.
Green doesn't have haste. So being able to give that to something which needs to aggressively do an alpha strike is nice. And that's where you would really see this over something that is like a red land that I'm mentioning before.
Right.
But not more I have to say about this.
No, well, let's move on to number 8 here. And speaking of
I forgot this guy's in this set.
Yeah. But this one is got $15, the eye-rollingly familiar Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker.
Infamous, and this art too is so sick.
2/2 Legendary Goblin Shaman for 5 mana. Again, triple red makes this a little costly to cast. Has haste. You can tap him to put a token copy into play of any non-legendary creature you control. The token has haste, and then it gets sacrificed at the end of the turn. again, anybody who has played Magic for any length of time has probably encountered Kiki Jiki, and the only reason he exists is as an infinite combo engine. Any number of cards paired with him, usually ones that ETB, untap, another thing, wins you the game.
Yeah, we won't get too much into it. We actually go into this a little bit deeper when we talk about infinite combos that you see, and this is one of them. We'll put a quick little link right here at this blip. So if you're interested in seeing how this actually interacts and why we are kind of nauseated by this card, be sure to check it out. And also, if you're a newer player wondering what the heck we're talking about, that too will answer your question right there. But my question is he on fire? Because it kind of looks like he is. Like at the
little
very
bit,
top.
yeah, a little bit.
Let's see if you pull it up real fast for us. Like legit, it looks like he's kind of
got his little hairs or antennas or whatever are on fire.
And I'm not sure if that's because of the dragon, but I don't know. That's honestly one of the things that's kind of baffled me. But honestly, outside of that though, it is a very powerful card. If you're not trying to do degenerate things with it,
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, you don't. It's very easy to do it degenerately, but if you're trying to be much more scholarly, I guess would be the way to say it, or chivalrously. I don't know. I'm not trying to assign a gender to it, but you can go ahead and make it so that you can get an additional big blight steal, for example.
Yeah, and that's not bad at all anyway, and you can do it immediately. So. Yeah, well, let's just
we'll leave it at that. All right, number 9. This one's going into my roundhouse. It is called Glimpse of Nature. Now, this is a $13 card, and it costs 1 generic for a 1 green for a sorcery that reads, whenever you play a creature spell this turn, draw a card. Now, I'm pretty sure this card is not allowed in Commander, correct?
Oh, no, it is not allowed in Commander. It's not allowed in basically any format where you even could play it. It's 100% banned, and for good reason, because when this was legal, it would simply allow a lot of like elf ball combo decks that just played a lot of low mana dorks to just draw their entire decks, play their entire decks, and win the game. It was really silly. Especially, you just play one card, and then for the rest of the turn, you have this generic effect. Like, what? Come on. Whoever thought this card was fair?
Yeah.
Really?
It's very, yeah.
I gotta know. Who thought this was fair and balanced?
Wizards?
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Sometimes I don't know what they do over there. I really don't.
Well, we've seen Hogwarts. We know what they do. Yeah. But, yeah, no, there's not much more to say. It's just, it can be oppressive if you have the right source of mana or a reduction cost or anything else like that. We won't really see the interaction of it. Like, if you want to have this kind of effect, you have to go through hoops in Commander to get it. And that being said, for a one-shot, even if it is a one-shot, you just need one shot for this.
Yeah, plus you see like Soul of the Harvest and Primordial Sage that do a similar thing. They're broken enough, and they're not even close to as good as this card is. Or
Zendikar Resurgent. Like, just having that much mana and doing it and going through and getting what you need, it's... Yeah, usually if that happens, you're in a little bit of trouble facing down that.
It's nuts. But let's just go on to our last one, and once again... It's a land, but it's not legendary this time.
Not this time.
So, hey, how about that? So, for $11, our final card on this list is Forbidden Orchard. And this is a land that taps to give you 1 mana of any color, passes the vanilla test right there.
Yep.
However, there is a little caveat here, because whenever you tap Forbidden Orchard for mana, you put a 1/1 spirit token into play under target opponent's control.
Which is a little counterintuitive right
that's
there.
kind of a weird negative to have. You don't really see that like anywhere else.
A land that produces tokens for
other
free.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very strange. I think this is, I mean, if you're really desperate for lands that come into play untapped and give you any color, you could do worse than this card. However, I like this more because it can be a political tool.
100%.
And in certain decks, I really do like it for that. Like, for example, one of my favorites was Scorpion God, because you give other people tokens that you can then kill for drawing cards. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Well, normally, actually, I see it in group hug decks where it's like, okay, I'll produce mana, and I'll give you some sort of chump block right now, and I'll make it so that you have more life. Like, usually it's seen in a more of a friendly kind of variant. I mean, you can use it in other methods, but that's typically where I see it, or if people don't want creatures coming into play because it hurts them, this is also another type of card that you will see for that.
Yeah, and whenever I'm putting together a deck, like a 5-color deck, and I'm trying to find a good mana base for it, I always look at this card and I'm like, maybe? Nah.
You really want to use this one. You really do.
I do, but I don't.
Because it's like, all right, you look at something like an Exotic Orchard. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
like
forbidden.
an
I always gotta make sure
yeah.
it wasn't this one. You look at something like an Exotic Orchard, which can potentially give you 5 mana, but again, if you're playing against monocolored decks, it inherently just becomes a more unique swamp or a unique mountain.
Yeah, a lot of the times it can be terrible.
Or like something like a Mana Confluence or
Yeah.
a City of Brass. You're like, all right, cool, I don't mind paying this life, but it's really starting to hurt me a little bit.
Eventually it does.
So that's why this one's a little bit more appealing at times.
Yeah, it's weird. Interesting card. Again, something that I always think about, always got to consider.
And this is another one that has been reprinted in one of the from the Vault sets, and again, still at this price, it's going to still be a card that you will see in Magic for a good bit of time. But that will conclude our part 3 of Champions of Kamigawa. Next time we will be showing you a Magic moment of some sort of special topic that we will be discussing with you.
Indeed, and I think it's going to be a good one. I mean, should we tell them what it's going to be about?
Nope.
No? All
but
right.
instead, we will say, if
time.
you want to try to take a guess, be sure to let us know on our social media platforms. You can reach us at a vast assortment of them.
We got Reddit, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we have Tapped Out where we have all our deck lists. You can also email us, and you can find all of those at the handle The Card Pool.
And also to note, we do have an affiliate link now associated with TCG Player. So if you do shop from there, or you're looking at a place that's solid to shop from, check them out. Click the link down below to lead you to their site, and it will help out the channel, and it will also let them know that you like what we make.
Help us by helping yourselves to whatever you want from their site.
You scratch. I don't know that saying. But either way, I'm Stu.
I'm Kyle.
And we will see you next time at the Card Pool. It's a scratchy back reference, isn't it? So you scratch your back, and then
your back scratches.
Your back scratches you.
You.
But your back.
Yeah. Cut it.